Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking one of the great remaining mysteries, consciousness, and we're sort of placing it right in front of the Big Bang itself. We're looking at a stack of incredibly provocative sources that challenge, well, maybe the biggest assumption in modern science.
Which is that consciousness is just some sort of fleeting, accidental passenger in a purely physical universe.
Exactly.
That's right. Our mission for you is to really analyze these sources. They're asserting a radical ontological flip. The idea that consciousness is fundamental, eternal, and that it actually precedes the universe.
So intelligence, intentionality, and maybe most importantly, free will.
Right. The argument is that these aren't outcomes of physical reality. They are the foundational building blocks of reality itself.
And I think that's the core tension we're diving into. It's not just the how of consciousness, the hard problem.
Yeah, it's much better.
It's which came first, consciousness or cosmology? Are we living in the universe that exists by, I don't know, mechanical chance?
Or one that exists by deliberate conscious choice?
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our sources present two really competing explanations for how mind and matter relate. The one we all know is the emergent theory.
That's the traditional materialist stance.
Yes.
The brain generates consciousness, period.
Right. It's like wetness emerging from water molecules. H2O molecules on their own aren't wet, but you get enough of them together and boom, wetness.
So consciousness is just an emergent property of all that neural complexity. But the alternative view, the one we're really focusing on today.
The radical one.
The radical one, yeah. It's the transduction theory. And it just flips the whole script.
How so?
It argues that consciousness is not something the brain produces. It suggests consciousness is fundamental. It's a pervasive global reality, and the brain is just a filter.
Or a receiver.
Yeah,
It's not a factory, it's a radio.
Exactly. The brain isn't excreting consciousness. This view says our local consciousness, our self, is just a localized expression of a non-local global field of consciousness. So if you accept that, you stop thinking of consciousness as a result of a physical process.
And start seeing it as a prerequisite.
Precisely. Consciousness is mediated by the brain, not caused by it. The brain's existence is contingent on the field, not the other way around.
Okay, but hang on. I have to push back a little there from a critical standpoint.
Please.
If consciousness is just this pre-existing signal, why does physical damage to the brain, a stroke, a tumor, even certain drugs, why does that alter consciousness so dramatically?
That's the essential challenge, and the sources see it coming. They say the analogy needs to be a bit more sophisticated. Think of it less like a simple radio and more like a complex filtration system.
Okay.
If you damage the antenna or the tuning mechanism, the physical brain, you degrade or distort the signal locally. You're not destroying the broadcast station.
You're just messing up the individual receiver's ability to pick up the full signal.
You're destroying its capacity to express the full bandwidth.
That does make the distinction between contingency and causation a lot clearer. And this isn't a totally new idea, is it? I mean, the sources point back to Descartes prioritizing thought.
Right, and even modern thinkers. David Chalmers suggests consciousness could be a fundamental feature of the universe, just like, space or mass. It's irreducible.
A kind of panpsychism, where mind is just part of the fabric of reality.
So let's follow that logic. If we accept the standard model that the universe physically had a beginning, the Big Bang, then consciousness has to be understood first as a conceiving agent and only later as a perceiver or an observer.
The universe couldn't just pop into existence without being conceived first. The sources really hammer this point home. They cite three classical philosophical assertions, right? They all treat consciousness as this ontological given.
A fact you have to assume is already there for anything else to exist.
First, we have George Berkeley. To be is to be perceived. Objects only exist when a mind is aware of them.
Then you have Alexius Meinong, who takes it a step further. To be is to be conceived. The idea has to come first.
And then, of course, Erwin Schrödinger, who sort of formalizes it in physics, is to be observed.
And the implication there is, well, it's profound. If consciousness is necessary for any of that, then it can't have a beginning in time.
Not like the universe does. Cosmology has a timeline.
But consciousness in this model is beginningless.
In other words, the blueprint precedes the building.
Essence precedes existence. The consciousness that conceived the universe had to be outside of time.
Wow.
And this leads right into the physics of it. I mean, the very genesis of matter. The sources ask if that jump from pure energy to organized mass E equals mc squared. if that requires an agent.
An agent that's cognitive and free. One making a conscious choice to create matter.
And they bring in Max Planck, the father of quantum theory.
He didn't pull any punches on this one.
No, he said he regarded consciousness as fundamental, that all matter originates and exists only because of a force, and behind that force.
There must be a conscious and intelligent mind.
A huge claim. That consciousness is literally the source of mass and energy.
So we're moving from philosophy to physics here,
Yeah.
into the quantum realm.
The non-local observer. Which brings us right back to wave function collapse,
And Schrodinger's thought experiment.
the famous cat in the box.
Right.
Until a conscious observer opens that box, the system is in superposition. The cat is both dead and alive at the same time.
The physical universe is just a field of probability.
It's indeterminate, yeah. Until the act of observation collapses that wave function, forcing one of those probabilities into a definite reality, the observer is what turns potential into actual.
And what's fascinating here is how the sources argue this means the universe isn't locally real.
Okay, so we should probably clarify what that means for you listening. Local realism is our everyday experience. Objects have definite properties whether we're looking at them or not. Your coffee cup is solid and exists even when you leave the room.
Right. But non-local realism, which is what these sources say, actually describes the universe.
States that objects don't have definite properties until they're measured or observed. The quantum world isn't an algorithm running in the background. It needs a decision.
And that indeterminate nature. That's the link.
It's what connects us to that non-local reality through quantum entanglement.
When you have twin particles separated by billions of miles, and they're still instantaneously linked.
Faster than light, it suggests a universe that's interconnected in a way that just bypasses local space and time.
And the sources say this connection is mediated by non-local consciousness.
And here's the really radical leap they make. If observation collapses the wave function, forcing reality to pick one path out of infinite possibilities,
Then that collapse is an act of free will.
physics is tied directly to conscious choice.
Okay, let's pivot to the ingredients of consciousness itself. The sources say there are 4 features shared by both our local individual self and this hypothesized non-local consciousness.
Right. Intelligence, intentionality, phenomenality, and volition.
Which is just another word for freedom.
And of these, freedom is seen as the absolute essential feature, the non-negotiable definition of consciousness.
Freedom is the capacity to choose.
But it's more than that. It's the inability not to choose. They bring up Sartre, who said, to be conscious is to choose, and to choose is to be conscious.
You can't separate them.
You can't. He said man is freedom. Even if you try to avoid choosing, you've just made the choice to avoid it.
That's a powerful idea. And so the extrapolation is what?
Well, if our limited temporal consciousness has intelligence and freedom, then the original, eternal, non-local consciousness
The one that conceived the universe.
must possess those same properties, but, infinitely more so.
Okay, but the sources do point out one crucial distinction, right?
Yes. Phenomenality.
Which is what exactly?
It's that subjective experience. It's Thomas Nagel's famous question, what is it like to be a bat? Or what is it like to be you?
So my unique first-person perspective.
Exactly. That's the distinctive feature of an individual self. And they admit this is the toughest hurdle for the transduction model.
Because if consciousness is just one big global field, a single source, how do you get billions of unique, distinct IS?
Right. If the brain is just a receiver, what accounts for the birth of that specific subjective self and its apparent end at death?
The sources don't really have a clear answer for that, do they?
They don't. They admit the origin of the unique individual self remains elusive. It's often just called a temporary, inexplicable, brute-given phenomenon.
Which brings us to the ultimate philosophical stakes here. If you accept that consciousness is fundamental, that it can't be created from just physical stuff,
Then the sources say you're left with 2 unavoidable and mutually exclusive positions.
option 1 is the brute given.
Right. This is the position that consciousness is just there. An inexplicable, suffused substrate of reality. No reason, no purpose.
We just accept the fact of consciousness and freedom, but they're ultimately meaningless facts. The universe exists sans raison, without a reason.
Yes. And option 2 is the non-local connection.
This one posits that our local consciousness is fundamentally linked to a non-local consciousness.
Which the sources pretty explicitly equate with the divine self, or God.
And the stakes there couldn't be higher.
No. Because accepting that God option gives you a cohesive framework. It helps you understand why the universe exists, why we have consciousness and freedom. It gives the whole thing purpose.
Whereas without it, without that belief in an intentional, non-local conceiver.
You're pretty much forced into existentialism. You have to argue, like Sartre did, that existence precedes essence. The universe just is, without any inherent cause or purpose.
And the sources bring it all back to that one key characteristic.
Freedom.
They conclude that the existence of conscious freedom, that ability to choose to collapse a quantum wave function, is the strongest argument we have for both the reality of free will.
And the existence of that non-local consciousness. The two beliefs are seen as correlated. If you believe in true freedom, you tend to believe in an intentional origin.
We have traced a massive arc today. I mean, from the emergence of matter all the way to the essence of choice. The paradigm shift these sources are presenting is just staggering. The idea that consciousness isn't a passenger in some cosmic process.
But that it's the very engine of reality.
That the universe exists and continues to exist only by an intelligent, ongoing choice. It's the difference between matter being created by design versus us just manipulating it by, say, splitting an atom.
And for a final synthesis, the sources make one last logical leap. They say if our local individual mind can comprehend non-temporal eternal things, like the perfect abstract idea of a triangle which exists outside of space and time, then there must be an infinite and eternal non-local observer, a mind in which those timeless realities permanently reside.
It's an argument that really does place mind at the absolute center of everything. So we'll leave you with a provocative thought for your next deep dive. If freedom is truly fundamental to the entire structure of the universe, if the cosmos itself exists only by a conscious choice that turns potential into reality, what does that imply about your own daily choices?
Knowing that your free will is what dictates reality on both a micro and a macro scale.
Think about the weight of your next decision.